Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today, I have with us. He's a director, and he has a anthology film that's in the works, and there's an Indiegogo out for it right now, and it's called Tales of the Unnatural. Lurks in the Dark. I have with us Zach Keen. Zach, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on, man.
So it's a pleasure just being in the presence of you.
Thank you. Now, I'm a fucking huge anthology fan. You know, Creepshow, Tales from the Crypt. Tell us a little bit about Tales of the Unnatural.
Tales of the Unnatural started back in, I think, 2014, actually. It started off as a series of short films that were inspired by a low-budget movie called Tales from the Quad Dead Zone by Chester Novel Turner. And I decided to I initially wanted to do it as an anthology film back then, but certain things kept that from happening, so I just decided to start shooting little shorts here and there under the Tales of the Unnatural name. The first one that was shot was about a doctor who lost some patients on the operating table and blames himself for that. He then gets progressively more and more drunk, only to be accosted by the dead bodies. And at the time, I wasn't really thinking so much of the story, but you could easily say either it was his drunken stupor that made him imagine the dead bodies, or they were actually coming after him, even though he technically wasn't responsible for their deaths. It was something too far gone. And then the second Tales of the Unnatural was made as the second short was made as a class project for a psychology class after I discovered this test that had been done back in the 60s to see how far someone would go in torturing somebody, so I thought that would make a good idea. And then I decided to make the feature in 2020 when a friend of mine out of North Carolina, I happened to be going there for a wedding, and we decided to put together something. That was the first one, and now we're working on the sequel right now.
Nice. So, all right, so hold on. You said in the 60s they did an experiment on to see how far they can torture someone?
It was, I don't know exactly, I don't remember what the name was, but basically the idea is they told that someone was hooked up to an electrical apparatus and it would administer a shock, and depending on what button you push, the shock would get more and more progressively painful. And then they wanted to see if someone would reach the last button. It turned out the entire thing was a fluke. No one was actually hooked up to anything. It was all staged, but they wanted to see how far people would go, and some people went halfway and some people went all the way.
Wow. So one thing I do like about a anthology is that sometimes you have multiple stories, and then in the beginning and it kind of ties all of the stories together. Is that something that you're doing in your anthology?
There's going to be a crypt keep. Oh, sorry for interrupting.
Or they all stand alone.
They all stand alone, but there is going to be a Crypt Keeper-esque character who introduces the stories. The only thing that ties them together is the fact that something happens in the dark, and subsequent sequels, whenever those happen, will also have something that ties all the shorts together, whether it be usually it'll be like a common, there's a word I'm looking for, like a common thing all of them share, like they all have to do with water, or they have to all take place in the cold, or it all has to do with dreams, or it all has to do with something mechanical, vice versa.
Now, as a filmmaker, by doing an anthology, doing multiple short films, do you find it easier to do short films over full-length feature 90-minute movies?
It's kind of the same with me on both ends as making shorts and making features. I'm doing practically everything by myself, so it can take a long time to get most of these things done, sometimes months, sometimes years. Tales of the Unnatural took, I think, maybe a year to finish. Some of the shorts had been already filmed prior, and then I put them together, but some of the other ones... we filmed that in 2020, but it came out in June 2021, if I remember correctly. So it took kind of a long time to finish it. Some of my other films, like Black Tiger, started in 2019 and didn't get completed until 2021 or 2022.
Now, you're a young guy. I can see you're probably in your 20s. Now, I'm 41. Is it easy right now as a young filmmaker to not only make a movie and but also get it out there for people to see?
Somewhat, yes. I would say it's to certain extents, yes. With the advent of the internet, it is a lot easier to find out how to get your films out there, whether it be via just YouTube or going into film festivals. You can easily get into a film festival for $50 or something like that, and then subsequently you have more film classes and college classes that pertain to the business of film, so you can learn things there and find out how to do things via those classes. Whereas before, a lot of it was do it yourself. I remember checking out countless how to make movie books from the library, and a lot of these were from the 70s. They highlighted the advent of video and what you can use for Super 8 and 8mm cameras. So that's what I grew up with. So I didn't even consider the internet when I started making movies. I didn't start considering the internet until 2015, to be fair.
So you're doing horror films. Have you always been a horror fan?
Ever since third grade. But I kind of have I would like to not do horror all the time. I would like to break out into some other things that like fantasy, sci-fi, maybe even the occasional drama, because I've written books and comics where it's not horror at all. It's more dramatic with some fantasy elements.
Now, I ask filmmakers all the time because I've ran into a lot of filmmakers who are not necessarily horror fans, but they go into the horror genre to make their first couple films because they say it's the easiest genre to make films and also be experimental. Is that something that you ran into?
Yes. But at the time when I started making movies, I kind of was a fan of horror to begin with, so I didn't go in because I found it easy. I went in just because I liked that kind of stuff. And as the years have gone on, no, making horror films isn't easy. It's just much more easy to sell because you could still make a garbage film that gets sold. And like, for instance, there was this movie called The COVID Killer that got released some time back, and it looks like it was shot in someone's apartment, and the killer is wearing a COVID mask, but no one seems to be able to find him, even though it's pretty obvious what he looks like. It's just this that got released to VOD. So it's not whether or not it's easier to make a horror movie. It's just what are people gonna succumb to, I guess.
I agree with you. Like, I feel like people are more forgiving when it comes to bad horror movies than they are other genres like drama and action. Like, because if you get a bad quality action movie or a drama or even a fantasy, it's sometimes unwatchable. But like even a low quality horror movie, you can kind of still sit through it.
Yeah.
Now, what was the first horror movie that you saw that scared the shit out of you growing up?
The first one to actually 100% scare the shit out of me was Lucio Fulci's House by the Cemetery.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I got that on one of those 15 DVD packs with Night of the Living Dead. Because beforehand, when I got into horror movies, it was predominantly the golden age of cinema, the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. I didn't watch movies for blood and guts. I watched them because I could tolerate those ones. I wasn't scared of those ones. I found them interesting. Then we got this DVD pack filled with stuff from the 70s and the 80s, and that's when gore started to be more prominent. And I genuinely got ill watching House by the Cemetery. I had to actually go and sit in the bathroom on my stomach on the floor because of how sickening that movie was.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the one that really disturbed me. So there's two. So actually, there's three. As a kid, the original Candyman, it disturbed it scared the shit out of me. I was scared to use the bathroom alone. I think it was like 5 or 6 when that first came out. But like, even as a teenager. And people look at me like I'm crazy when I say this one, but the first Blair Witch, remember I was in high school, And there was no blood, there was no gore, there wasn't anything. It was, the first found footage horror movie. It was a shaky camera, and there was something about it that just disturbed me afterwards.
I saw that also in high school. But yeah, back in like 2010 or something. And I didn't freak out, but I definitely felt very tense watching it, and it's because of the off the cuffness of it.
Yeah, because you didn't know what you were watching.
You didn't see movies like that at the time, outside of the last broadcast, which did come out before. But you didn't see movies where it seemed like real people filming themselves or being. You didn't see movies like that felt real.
Yeah, because that movie came out, I want to say, in 1999. I was a junior in high school, and I actually bought it from the video store. So, and there was like this whole mystery behind it. Like, this is the early days. This was the early days of the internet, and there was this whole mystery about if this movie was real or not, because there was actually a site, a Blair Witch Project site, saying that these students were missing, and there was commercials saying that, news reports, and no one really knew if this was real or not, and like it added to the fucking weirdness of this movie.
Yeah, great marketing campaign.
Yes.
Great marketing campaign.
Now, are there some newer horror movies that you got inspiration from, or you're like, what you love?
You'd be surprised. I don't watch modern movies.
Really?
My cutoff date, to be fair, is like 2006. I will watch the occasional modern movie, but I don't really watch them all the time. The most recent modern movie I've actually seen is Deadpool.
Okay. The first one?
Yeah, the first one. And I didn't get the appeal. I mean, it was fun, but I got kind of bogged down by the sarcasm. They needed to tone down a bit. But I thought it was fine, but that's the most recent movie I've seen outside of that was the most recent one I saw as of recent. The most recent one I saw was the bad guys in the theater.
That's the animated one.
They really put their campaigns out to the furries in the audience, didn't they?
All right. So, what are some perks right now? So, you have your Indiegogo out. What are some amazing perks that someone who wants to donate can look forward to?
Oh, you get a DVD physical. You could get a free digital copy. You could get a DVD copy for $20. You could get posters. You can get a producer's credit, which means that you pay a subtle amount, a suitable amount. Let's say if you wanted to contribute $200, you would get a producer's credit, which means you would get most of the other perks, such as the poster, the free DVD, a signed subsequently poster and poster DVD, and maybe a prop that was used in the film. That one's kind of on the up in the air right now because I haven't really a prop to give out, but I might have one in the future.
Okay. Well, this one sounds like some good perks. All right. So, Zach, as you know, this is a horror channel, of course. So I'm going to ask you 3 random horror questions. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What is a bad horror movie, or older horror movie that you're like, boy, that was a bad movie, but it had potential, and if you could remake it, you would make it your way with your own spice.
Well, that's a real good question. What have I seen recently that sucked?
But it was a good idea.
No, the only movie that I could really think of that was The Creeping Terror.
I haven't seen that one.
Are you a fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Love Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Then you've seen The Creeping Terror. It's the one with the walking rug monster.
The walking rug monster?
It kind of looks like it has pieces of vacuum stuck to its head, and it swallows women in by via opening in its front.
I have not seen this one. I'm writing it down right as we speak.
It's a Mike episode, so
Nice.
it's one of the funnier ones. Yeah, like there's some of the infamous moments in the movie where a guy, because the monster walks so slow that you could easily run from it, but nobody does, so that it can swallow them. One guy fights it off with a guitar and winds up getting eaten. There's a scene where a woman gives a baby a rectal thermometer, and then she winds up getting killed. There's a scene where a random fight breaks out at a dance party where the monster is attacking, and the fight and the monster doesn't seem to be taking place at the exact same time, so it's random. And most of the dialogue was dubbed over by some radio personality because, according to the director, all of the audio equipment fell into a river or something like that. But who knows what the guy was actually up to. The guy was a creep in real life. He ran off with all the money from the theatrical release, was abusive to his wife, and according to a documentary made on him, he liked to dress as Hitler.
Jeez.
And what's even scarier, Charlie Manson worked on the movie.
Really? See, now I'll watch this one now, man. All right, but how would you redo it?
Well, first off, I would tighten up the script. There's a lot of nothing going on in the movie, but I would rewrite it so that the monster had some way of grabbing people because of how slow it is. So it has like a tendril or something that grabs you when you're running, so it pulls you back. That's obviously the first thing that would pop into my head, and then I would update the design to look a little more weird and have obviously better jumps, better everything, really. I mean, you watch the movie and it's fairly obvious that the person who made it didn't know what they were doing.
All right, here's the second question, and I asked somebody this question on their actual show. You're trapped on a desert island for 30 days with any iconic horror character. Now, you don't know what the fuck they might do. They might kill you, they might not. Who's going to be?
30 days with an iconic horror movie character. I'm trying to think. Oh, hell. I can't give names, but somebody who would probably be really good at problem solving. The first one that popped in my head was Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street, because she's obviously a problem solver, but I'm trying to think of other people. Maybe one of the scanners from Cronenberg's film, probably the main scanner, because I don't know how exactly scanning works, but he might be able to send SOSs with his mind.
True. How about Bruce Campbell, Ash?
Well, he might be a badass, but he's not. He's kind of a lunkhead, and I met Bruce.
That's true.
I didn't meet Bruce Campbell, so chances are we would just be getting into screaming matches and trying. And he would probably dig a hole in the ground and just eat bananas while I'd be trying to get off. Ash the character, not Bruce the person.
That's true. See, I don't know who I'd pick, but like, so look. So if I'm picking a non-killer, right? If I'm picking a non-killer, I guess I'm going with Laurie Strode, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking a killer. I'm picking one of the Ghostface teenage girls because I feel like I could take them in a fight, and you know what I mean. I feel like if I know who they are, and I'm like, oh, she's clearly a killer.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm good at defending myself. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I'd rather take my chance than with Michael Myers or Jason or something.
Well, you don't have to be smart to be I mean, you don't have to be strong to be a killer. You just have to be smart. So you think you could take them, but then they'll probably stab you in the nuts.
But I know it's coming though. See. But here's the thing: with most horror movie characters, they use stealth. You know what I mean? You don't know that the kill is coming. But if I'm on an island and I see her and I'm like, oh, she is the killer from Scream 4 or 5 or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep my eyes on her I just feel like if she was to attack me, I would have a better chance than if Michael Myers or Jason. Like, I definitely wouldn't want to be on an island with someone who has powers like Freddy Krueger or Pinhead or something, because
unless you figure out, like, are there any serial killers who can warp space and time? Because if there is, like, you take them out, steal whatever they use to warp space and time, you leave them stranded.
That is true. That's true. I'm also going with the ladies from Scream, also because they only killed people who they had a grudge with. So I didn't do shit to them. So chances are they're not going to do nothing to me.
Nah.
So that's
unless you do something to piss them off. Like let's imagine the sorority girls from that remake of Black Christmas were the ones who are the killers.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because they hated all men. So
yeah, they hated everybody. No, seriously, how can you? It was hard to like any of them because they were trying to force their friends into doing things to like speak out against certain things, even if their friends were uncomfortable about it because they didn't want to think about it. They're like, no, you need to because this happened to you. Therefore, if you don't do this, then you're not for the thing. And it's like, hold up, wait a minute, we're supposed to like you.
Yes.
Because like in the original movie, there was some fucked up shit going on in there, but you know they weren't nasty about it. Like that movie talked about abortion, but not to the way this 2019 version talked about, you know, like campus assault and things like that. In fact, I've often thought that's another thing. If I was to remake Black Christmas 2019. How would I handle that subject matter?
Mm-hmm.
And I would talk about if I was to handle that subject matter, and I bet somebody's going to get all pissed off that we're even talking about this. If I was to handle that subject matter, I would show that it isn't just one group of people who can get assaulted on campus.
Yes.
Like, for instance, like let's say the main girl, she had been assaulted on campus, and they found the guy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she becomes an advocate for that kind of thing. And her boyfriend doesn't like to talk about it that much. And she's like, what, are you against it? What's the problem? And then he's like, I was raped too. And she's like, wait, what?
Ooh.
And he's like, yes, I was raped too. I don't like to talk about it because I don't want to relive it. And she's like, wait, so I was, and you were too? Who did it to you? Some girl at a frat party doused me.
But this is going to get me in trouble, so I don't give a fuck. But I cannot fucking stand horror movies that have this huge political agenda, whether it be race, feminism, politics, whatever. Like, I cannot deal, and that's what turned me off about that Black Christmas. It smelled like feminism, you know what I mean? And I'm not anti-feminism, but I don't want that shit in my fucking horror movie. Like,
it smelt of pseudo-feminism.
Or radical, pseudo or radical. Yes.
It smelt of someone, because I remember somebody, I think it was the Cinema Snob. He did a backseat critique with Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, and they said when they were watching it, they were thinking to themselves, the person who wrote this was probably thinking of all the documentaries that were going to be made about them years later. Because they hated it, they despised it.
But like, have you seen the movie Men? It was A22 indie horror movie. And
I heard about it. Wasn't that the one where it was like the most dangerous game?
No, it was it. So the title was Men, and it was about this woman who, like, she's the victim. Anyway, like, and every man, she moves to this town, and every man is a fucking creep. Like, every single man, like, there's one guy walking around with his dick out, just running, woo, you know? And, like, there's this creepy pastor who she thought that she could confide in, and he's creepy. And it's just, like, and I actually saw this movie in the fucking theater, too, which, I paid a fucking $15 to see this fucking piece of shit. And I was, like, sitting through it, and I was, like, and I was thinking my whole entire time, I was like, who the fuck is this movie for? You know what I mean? I was like, who is this movie for? It's clearly not for men, right? And I'm like, it is clearly not for 90% of women, and I was like, oh, I can tell a woman directed this movie, and because I'm like, no man acts the way that the men in this movie act. It was just over creepy, and I'm like, no man talks like, even the creepiest guy I've ever met in my life doesn't talk or act like that.
No, because I've met some weird individuals in my life too, and they usually don't come off like that until like later down the line. It's almost like some people think that sex relations haven't improved since like 1930 or something. But going back to how I would fix Black Christmas, it wouldn't be over politicized, but that would be kind of like the overarching thing. Like, let's say, for instance, there's a scandal going on at the college pertaining to this, and the killer is going after the rapists. The killer is going after the rapist, but then someone gets accused, he gets killed, but it turns out he didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, oh shit, this killer is going after people who were just accused, but turned out to have not done anything.
Oh.
And then we find out like who is the killer, and then maybe perhaps let's say maybe the killer wasn't someone who was a victim at all. Maybe the killer is trying to, fix things because he was like, let's say the killer is a dude or something. I don't have any aspects for this. Let's say he's trying to fix the problem because like the school isn't or the police can't catch anybody, and it turns out he's not making things better for anybody. So if I was maybe to try and tackle a subject like that, it would have to be very, very, very well thought out, because everything I've just mentioned right now, that's just kind of an idea. Mm-hmm. I probably won't even make this, but like the idea, well, just because I want to make sure that if I do make it, it's made as right as it can be. It would be delicate. It would be kind of like, like the original Black Christmas, where they talked about abortion and how delicate they handled that subject. Or let me see. I'm trying to think of other films that talk about difficult subject matter but treats it very delicately. I can't really think of any, but yeah, some horror movies will bring up a subject delicately, and then it won't be like this, but they'll do it.
A movie that I saw recently, last couple of years, was Midsummer. I don't know if you saw that Ari Aster movie, and it hits on depression and mental health, but it hits on it and then goes away, and it hits on it and go away. It's not steady, and it has to deal with story, but it's not steady in your face every 2 seconds. It hits you with a topic in the beginning, and then one in the middle, and one at the end, and it's just tied up nicely compared to in your face for an hour and a half. Yeah, definitely. In your face for an hour and a half is never gonna appeal to anybody. No. On either side of the spectrum, regardless of what aisle you're on. If you're doing a soapbox movie, it's not going to appeal to anybody except for those who want to be on that soapbox with you. Correct. And final question. Okay, I'm gonna ask this one. What horror movie? Okay, this is a fun one. What horror movie franchise do you wish they would start making movies? For good or bad? Let me see. Franchise. Halloween is the easiest pick. It is. Mainly because the concept has gotten a little tiresome if they were to go in a different direction. Because I've even thought about this. I was like, because they kind of did this in the last one. Like Michael Myers gets killed, but they want to keep the iconography. So let's say they try and combines Halloween 3 with the rest of the series by saying that the Michael Myers mask was a silver shamrock mask, and nobody knew at first. And that's why Michael did the evil things that he did. This is all copywritten, by the way. You do not get to use this. Nobody gets to use any of this. This is a good idea. Okay. So yeah, like the Michael Myers mask turns out to be a remnant of Silver Shamrock from Part 3, and that's why
like maybe a prototype, like an early idea that Silver Shamrock was doing before the events of 1963 in the original movie. So, and they put out a prototype, and it drove Michael crazy. And then later in life, maybe some of that prototype evil pagan magic wound up in the Shatner mask he was wearing. So whoever wears it takes on the personality of Michael Myers.
See, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Or we have a prequel film that takes place kind of like what Rob Zombie did, where we kind of delve into why Michael was doing what he was doing. Like we see him doing these things, and then we see him kill people on the way to Haddonfield.
That's a good idea, but at the same time, so I'm a huge Halloween fan. You know, the original is my favorite horror movie of all time. I just think we need a good break from Halloween. I mean, ever since I've been on this earth, there's been a Halloween movie coming out religiously every 2 years.
Guys, let's say between hold on. There was the 19. When did Halloween 5 come out? 85.
So the original came out in 1979.
Yeah, Halloween 5 came out in like 88, I think, and then we had a hiatus until like 1990 something, I think.
It was 1995, 95 or 96. I saw this in the theater.
Yeah, you saw Curse of Michael Myers.
Yeah, Curse of Michael Myers.
I want to see that only because I like the look of it, but if I did see it, it would be the producer's cut.
It's a good Michael. It's a good Halloween. A lot of people say they hate it. It's a good Halloween to me.
The producer's cut, at least, because the theatrical cut seems to be the one that's butchered the most.
But the theatrical has some amazing kills, had an interesting story. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why people hated that movie so much. So,
it's because 13-year-old boys didn't like it.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed Curse of Michael Myers. But then we had H2O, and I want to say that was in 1999 or 2000, or somewhere.
Yeah, and then Halloween Resurrection was like a year 2002.
Later. Yeah, it was like a year or two later. And then we had a break. And then, of course, the Rob Zombie flicks came.
That was 2007. And then we had another break, and then we had the 2018, yeah. So it's not necessarily breaks. I think it's just we need better writers.
Well, who though? I mean, who?
Hey, get a comedian in there. That's what they got for the 2018 one.
Because I mean, listen, I love 2018. I was like, wow, 2018 was something refreshing. It was nice, and like I think it should have just been a standalone.
Yeah.
The fact that they turned it into a trilogy, I don't know why they did that. Because it should have just been a one-off. Boom. I mean, it was the perfect ending.
Yeah, because I saw Halloween and that sucked major shit. Yeah, I didn't even see the one that came afterwards. I didn't see that one. Are there what other things? Because I know that they kind of killed Pinhead a bit with some of those sequels.
But the remake was good.
I haven't seen the remake, but let me think. What other horror franchises are just dead in the water?
Is one of the obvious ones too.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is pretty dead. They've never been able to pick up from part 2. So part 3, part 4. What was there? Part 5, and there's like 6 of them, right?
So it was the first. It was the 3, and then it was Next Generation was part 4, and then we got the 2 reboots, which are 6, and then there
was 2003. Then there was Leatherface, and then there was the one with the influencers.
The 3D one. It was the 3D one. That was
one. Because there was one in 2003. I think there was one in 2011. Because that one was the one where there was the baby. There was a baby in that one. And then recently we had the one with the influencers in it.
Yes, so there's 9.
Subsequently, here's another idea I had for a sequel. If they were going to do a sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we see Leatherface by himself just going town to town butchering people, but he has his mask off. We never see his face, but he has his mask off, so no one knows that it's him. They just know that there's this big hulking, homeless-looking dude walking around, and he seems to put off some weird vibes, and they start noticing a trail, like, holy shit, wait a minute. Everyone's noticed some weird, big, bulky, homeless dude in places where people have been found killed. Who is this?
See, I would love to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a found footage. Mm-hmm. I really would. I would love to see a found footage version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
They would have to do a really good job. What if they did a version where it turns out that the Sawyers were using Super 8 film that they were shooting themselves? Because sound, and they could do sound, because sound on film was a thing from like 1974 to I think 1986, I think. Or
like, or they were doing scrapes of like family videos or something. I would love to fucking see that. Or like, you get to see Leatherface growing up, and you get to see him torturing people. So that would be interesting. I think that's the only way I would see another Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And no sound in it. No sound in some of those early ones, because if you see Leatherface growing up and it would be on film, it would have to be silent.
Yeah.
And that means it would pull there was a film called it sounds like Insidious, but it's not. Cargill, what's his name? He wrote it. It's the one where that guy finds that 8mm footage in the attic. It's got a name like Insidious, or in what was it? Sinister.
Oh, Sinister. Yeah, I fucking love Sinister. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember what his name is. It's Cargill something, because he used to be on Spill.com. So they could do that where we see the killings happening, but it's all silent, so you never actually hear what's happening. Mm-hmm. But you can just imagine what it sounds like.
Should not be fucking disturbing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And granted, they would have to do it in a way that felt realistic, because sometimes I'll watch these movies, or I'll see clips of modern day movies where they are showing stuff from the 80s or the 70s, and it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Because it looks like they're shooting on digital with a bunch of filters on it, and the camera is doing the found footage look. Whereas if you watch old movies, found footage wasn't a thing. So even if the camera was garbage, they usually kept it steady.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have all my grandparents' 8mm footage from 1949 to about 1978, I think, and most of that footage was steady as a rock, or it was handheld. You could tell it was handheld, but they kept their shots steady.
Yeah,
so it wasn't doing the found footage
all over the place. Yeah. Today. All right, Zach, where can everyone find you, my friend?
You can find me on YouTube at Cinema Fanatic Productions, as mentioned on this little moniker right here. Mm-hmm. If you could see that, you could find me on Facebook under my name. And as I've noticed, I misspelt my name, Zakar.
I was looking at that. I was like, okay, I didn't know that was your name.
No, I do have some Jewish ancestry, but I don't think that's how they say any of the names over there. I could be found on Instagram under my name. I could be found on TikTok at, I think, Cinema Fanatic 1, if I remember correctly. I can also be found on Twitter. I think it's also under Cinema Fanatic Productions on Twitter.
Well, I'm going to have in the description box right down there the link to his YouTube as well as the Indiegogo. So please donate towards the Indiegogo. Zach, it's been a pleasure having you on, man.
Thank you. Let's hope this discussion we had doesn't get you shut down.
I actually I was on my live yesterday because I hit 1,000 subscribers, and I was like, and I knocked it out in my first year. And I was like, you don't know how many times like I lost like mass amount of subscribers like through my first year, just because I was saying things that people don't like. But at the same time, like I try to have an interview channel that's real. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to just be reading off a cue card and be like, well, I'm gonna say some bullshit that I don't even believe. No, I'm not gonna listen. You come to my channel because you listen to my opinion, so it is what it is. Yes. All right, listen. Zach, it's been an absolute blast having you on. I'm glad that you corrected me. You told me about your name is not Zakar, because it would have said Zakar in the video. I'm like, damn, I thought the name was Zachary, but okay, Zakar it is.
I think Zakar would be a good stage name. I've had a couple in the past. My most prominent as of recent is Wolf Heinzman.
Zakar sounds like a great villain.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.